9th of October 2012. Now what? There have been very few times in my career when I've been completely stumped, when I've had absolutely no idea how to proceed. This is extraordinarily frustrating for a trauma surgeon. We're supposed to know exactly what to do, no matter how difficult the circumstances. But sometimes something presents itself that is so bizarre, so strange, so unpredicted, that my brain just stops. I had just such an experience recently. I got a rather frantic call from a doctor at a small community hospital on a Sunday morning. He sounded panicked, flustered, and at a loss. Yeah, I got something here for you. He was admitted last night. You just have to come and look. I need your help, I think. Maybe, probably. No, definitely. Please? What the hell was going on? Grumbling under my breath, I drove there begrudgingly. Despite my moaning and groaning, I was actually curious about what was so urgent that he needed me on a Sunday morning. It wasn't an emergency room patient, it wasn't a surgical patient. So, what was it? I walked into the man's room while glancing through his chart. He was in his 40s, very healthy, though perhaps a bit thin. He had been admitted the night before due to his rapid heart rate of around 140 beats per minute. He had no chest pain or any other symptoms. There was no reported history of heart disease, and there was no illegal drugs on his urine screen. I was confused about why I was there. I'm not a cardiologist. Why am I here? Then I turned the page. Patient admits to foreign object insertion. Aha! Now the truth comes out. It turns out he had taken a bunch of pseudoephedrine the night before, which had caused his heart rate to rise. And then he had... No, I have no idea why. Stop interrupting. Anyway, he had inserted something into his rectum. What did you insert, sir? I said after a brief introduction. A butt plug. Of course a butt... Wait, a what? I did a rectal examination, and I could feel the edge of something large, smooth, and flexible, but it was just outside the reach of my finger. After a minute of thinking, I went down to the operating room and grabbed a large clamp that looked like this. I returned to his room, instructed him to lay on his side, and I reached up there with the clamp, entirely by feel. I grabbed the edge of the thing with the clamp and pulled. Slowly it started to come out, and finally, with a groan from the patient and an audible, out came this. There I was, standing behind him, holding this 10-inch long thing. And that's when it happened. I had no idea what to do next. Do I throw it in the garbage? Does he want it back? Do I give it back to him? Do I say something to him? And if so, what? I was baffled. What now? After what seemed like 10 minutes, but it was probably closer to about 2 seconds, I walked over to the sink, grabbed a paper towel, put it on his bedside table, put the butt plug on the paper towel, and I walked out without a word. Not surprisingly, I never heard from him again. I have a sneaking suspicion the situation will arise again in the future, and even after thinking about it, I still don't know what I'll do when it does. 14th of October 2012. 9 lives. When it isn't your time to go, it just isn't your time. I'm not sure how much I believe that, but there's only so many patients I can see who should be dead but aren't before I start believing it. Imagine for a second that you have a beautiful, tall, old tree in your yard that unfortunately needs a branch at the top trimmed. Now, this is a huge tree, probably 35 or 40 meters high, around 100 to 120 feet, and the branch in question is near the very top. What would you do? Here, I'll give you some choices. Would you A. call a tree expert to trim the branch? B. Ignore it and hope it doesn't fall on your house? C. Get several 5-meter ladders, strap the first one to the bottom of the tree trunk and climb up the first 5 meters, then strap the next ladder to the tree trunk and climb up the next 5 meters, then tie the next ladder to the trunk and climb up the next 5 meters? You see where I'm going with this, right? My patient, a 50-ish-year-old man who had already beaten prostate cancer and lymphoma, decided to go for option C. He evidently thought he could also beat gravity, but gravity isn't just a suggestion, it's the law. Now I know what you're thinking. There's no way this tree was actually 40 meters high. Doc, surely you're exaggerating. Really? Am I? Those ladders you see are numbers 3, 4, and 5. Ladders 1 and 2 wouldn't fit in the bottom part of the picture. After he ran out of ladders, he attached spikes to his shoes and climbed another 7 or 8 meters above the top of the highest ladder. As he was trimming the branches, he cut the one that he was standing on. No, of course he wasn't wearing a safety harness. And down he went, the equivalent of jumping off the roof of a 9-story building, Now, when you fall only 3 or 4 meters off a ladder, there's no time to think. It's just, thud. But this guy had over 2 seconds to realize that what he had done was stupid before he hit the ground. I have a feeling it was something like this. Fortunately for him, he didn't land on his head. He fractured his left femur, left foot, left wrist, right ankle, and several bones in his pelvis. He also broke a bone in the middle of his back, and he'll need surgery to fix all of his various fractures. But keep this in mind. 50% of people who fall 4 stories die. 90% of people who fall 7 stories die. This lucky guy fell from 9 stories and never even lost consciousness. It just clearly wasn't his time to go. So now he's beaten prostate cancer, lymphoma, and gravity. By my count, he only has 6 lives left. It makes me wonder what he'll try and defeat next. 28th of October 2012. Seatbelt story. In case people still aren't convinced by the stories I've told about seatbelts, I got an email from a reader a few days ago with a story of her own. Coincidentally, my last seatbelt post was exactly a year ago today. Strange. Miss X, not her real name, not only gave me permission to post her story, but she asked if I would share it. To protect her identity, some names and details have been changed. Hey Doc. A few days ago I found a tree at 40 miles an hour on a backcountry road and I have always worn my seatbelt, but I have never been saved by one. My friend, whose truck it was, had pulled over because she was crying about unrelated marital issues, so I took over driving, and I was trying to turn around to go home for ice cream and a chick night. Instead, the Chevy Silverado hit the tree head on. I had never driven the truck before, and it was dark and raining on the curvy backcountry road. I broke the metal pedal on impact. We were 3 inches from being legless and 5 inches from being crushed. My chest broke the steering wheel off and pushed the steering column down 3 inches. I broke my 3rd, 4th, and 5th metacarpals in my right hand when the impact caused me to punch the radio. My friend did the same, but she spiral fractured her left middle finger. So we have matching purple casts on opposite hands. We joke that we fist bumped mid-impact. My ribs are sore, and my back muscles are not happy, but because of our seatbelts, we walked away from what should have been a fatal accident with a collective 4 broken bones in our hands, sore ribs, minor airbag burns, and deep seatbelt bruising. Without our seatbelts, we would have been thrown headlong into a tree and possibly died on impact. With them, we both walked away with relatively minor injuries. In the pictures, the big dent in the side of the truck shows that when we impacted, there was enough force to wrench the trunk bed back 2 inches, and it also dropped the spare tire from under the bed. If you look below the buttons on the steering wheel, you can see how I broke it. The tire in the picture is at an odd angle because the front axle was cut in half by the transmission being forced into the manifold by the engine. The X-ray is my hand. It was actually scarier to see the truck afterwards than the actual accident was. Thank you for being a wonderful person and doctor. The world needs more people like you. In addition to the story, she also sent me several pictures. Here is what remains of the front of the truck. Here's the broken steering wheel. And this, of course, is her hand with 3 broken bones. This is the sort of accident where you could say it could have been worse. You could try to argue that she was just lucky. No. I prefer to think of her as smart for using the very device that was designed to save her life. Thanks, Miss X, for sharing your story. I hope others will learn from you.